Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's class. As usual, we'll give you 5 minutes for everyone to be in class. So, chairpersons, I expect you to get all your members into class, and we'll start in the next 5 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, can anyone hear me?
Yes, you can hear you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's class. I am Fauzia Lawal, and I'll be your moderator for today. The DED has an information for cohort 16, so I would call on her to address everyone now. DED, ma, are you ready for us?
Okay, thank you, Fauzia. All right, our facilitator will be with us shortly. Okay, it's here already. So let's just give him a few minutes to settle down, and then we'll read his profile. But while we're doing that, we are currently halfway through the course. So I'd just like to hear from one or two persons how the course has been so far for you, from when you started and now that you're halfway. Just 2%. You can indicate with a show of hands. Okay. Oladapo Shegun. I've asked you to unmute. Just 1 minute.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear me, please?
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much. I want to say a big thank you to the Electoral College, the ED, DED, and the staffs, everyone involved in the Electoral College. This has been kind of eye-opener. Apart from the series of lectures, training that we are being given, I have also gained a lot through the activities and the election, the party intra-party electoral process, inter-party electoral process, and all that. In fact, it has really opened my eyes. So, in fact, how things, things that we criticize the people out there, that this is the way they are doing it, and we feel, how is these things possible? How, the deep secret things that happens in the world, have been exposed to even more through the process of the task given to us in the electoral college. And I want to sincerely appreciate everyone involved in this process. I've learned a lot about the program, the political system of Nigeria, and so much in this electoral college. And I want to appreciate the ED for establishing this and everyone involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shagun. I'm glad you've learned a lot. All right, we'll just take Bolu Atife and then we'll start the class.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Bolu Atife Agbono, and I'm the Publicity Secretary for HELPI. So very quickly, I've learned about good governance, that good governance is an expectation. It is what everybody is expecting from us, not an exception. I've also learned about branding and communication, that every point in your life, you are saying something. So what comes to mind when your name is being mentioned, that is your brand, because others must be able to brag about your brand in your absence. If others cannot brag about your brand in your absence, you don't have a brand. So what you say on social media, your graphics, your dressing, everything is speaking to you. I was even surprised, still relating to branding, how somebody in my cohort during our last meeting said, Bolu, I voted for you because of the way you portrayed yourself and your dressing. That was why I voted for you as the publicity secretary. So your brand speaks a lot about you, what you do, your graphics, the way you talk. And I've also learned that once you have declared, lose honorably, don't step down. That was what I learned. I also learned that how you speak is how you be heard, and how you dress is how you be addressed. Then I learned about the principles of marketing, which are product, price, promotion, and place. I've learned about crisis in communication. I've learned so much, and I just want to stop here. And I would like to say a very big thank you to ED. ED is a very, very disciplined man, and I've learned so much from him. My team members, everybody, my party members, everybody. I've also been able to network with others from other parties. It has been a journey of learning or relearning, and I want to say a very big thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Bolu Atife. All right, our facilitator is ready for us. Fauzia, can you just take his profile and then we'll start? You're welcome, Mr. Tony.
All right, thank you, Lima. Sorry, someone from sleep. Thank you very much, ma. So yeah, our facilitator is on the class, is on the meeting now, and is in person of Mr. Tony Usidame. Mr. Tony is a renowned communication expert. He's a social commentator. He's the founder of Uburu, a Nigerian-based marketing communication consultancy firm. And the firm is focused on providing services to individuals, businesses, governments across West Africa. Mr. Tony is equally an advocate of good governance and civic responsibility. He's the convener of I Am Edo. I Am Edo is a movement of young Edo professionals that seeks to inspire pride and patriotism in all people of Edo heritage. So join me in welcoming our facilitator for this evening as he takes on the class. Mr. Tony.
Thank you, Faiza. Good evening, everyone.
Tony, good evening. Tony, I won't let you speak just like that. I'll interrupt you. So it's a pleasure to have Tony. Tony has been with the Electoral College across how many? 16? 15 cohorts or 15? I think 15. And 15 cohorts, that is exemplary. And the most annoying thing is that I met Mr. Tony for the first time in real life just about 3 weeks ago. And we both didn't know we hadn't met. We've interacted so much. We've done a lot together. It's only the privilege. The celebrity, you have to talk to him with enough. The celebrity's celebrity. So, Tony, of course, it's my pleasure as the ED of the Electoral College to welcome you to the 16th cohort, and we expect you to blow our minds as usual. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Kunle. You're very, very kind. Thank you also, Faiza, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me well? I know I have the fan somewhere close by. I just want to be sure it's not interrupted. Can you confirm by indicating in the message in the chat box if you can hear me well?
Loud and clear. Thank you, Security. Very loud.
Thank you, Immaculata. Okay. So, as they have introduced, my name is Tony Usidamen. I'm not an expert on the subject of democracy and citizen participation. I'm just a Nigerian citizen who is passionate about his role as a citizen and who does his best to be a model one. So this is not a lecture per se. It's going to be a conversation. So at some point, if you have a view you would like to express, a question, you could indicate in the chat box, and later on, after the presentation, I will get to those comments or remarks or questions that you have. Okay, so our topic today is democracy and citizen participation. We will be looking at different forms of government. We'll start with anarchism, what it means. We'll look at autocracy. We'll also look at oligarchy as a form of government. And finally, democracy. Then we'll delve deeper into the subject of democracy itself. We'll look at the variants of democracy that we have and the challenges of democracy as practiced today. And then last but not the least, we will delve into the concept of citizenship. We will look at citizens, the idea of citizens as users and consumers. We'll also explore the transition from this to citizens as shapers and makers. We will look at issues in modern day citizenship because the times are changing, different issues are arising. We'll see how all of these issues impact our roles as model citizens in this day and age. And then finally, we will end with how to build active citizen participation. So let's start with the first question. What is government? In simple terms, government is the body with the power to make and or enforce laws to control a country, a land area, a people, or an organization. I'll take that again. Government, in simple terms, is the body with the power to make and or enforce laws to control a country, a land area, a people, or an organization. So most of the time when you hear the word government, you usually would think of geographical territories, you usually would think of countries, but the term government applies to much more than geographical regions. I'm sure many of us in the corporate world would have heard the term corporate governance. That is a form of government even in the business world. And a form of government also exists in the families and in smaller sections of society, as we would see when we go on in this presentation. So anybody that has the power to make and enforce laws for either a country, a land area, a people, or an organization is referred to as a government. And most societies agree that the existence of government is morally justified. Now, what are the different types of government that we have? And these few examples that I have here are for academic purposes, right? So we'll start with the very first one, which is anarchism. And anarchism just simply means rule by none, okay? And anarchism means rule by none. Technically, right, there is no society where there is no form of government in place. So technically, you could say that anarchism as a system of government does not exist. But in practice, as I would explain in just a while, you would see that it is possible to have a rudderless government, and different examples of these abound. So anarchism is rule by none. It's a society without publicly enforced government or political authority. Following that is autocracy. An autocracy just simply means rule by one, okay? Autocracy is rule by one. It's a system of government in which absolute power is concentrated in the hands of one or a few people. Examples are the absolute monarchies, such as we have in countries like Saudi Arabia, in the UAE, in Oman, and Brunei, and dictatorships in countries like North Korea. These are the modern day examples of autocracy. So again, autocracy is a system of government in which supreme power rests in the hands of just one person or just a few people. And examples are Saudi Arabia, most of those Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Brunei, and then more serious form of autocracy is what you have in North Korea, which can be described as a dictatorship, okay? So let's move on to the third type of government, which is oligarchy. Oligarchy simply means rule by the few. So anarchism, a recap, is rule by none. Autocracy is rule by one or a polity. Oligarchy is rule by a few, and it's a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. And we can distinguish these people by different factors. We can talk about the aristocracy, which is ruled by the nobility. So people of noble births, noble backgrounds, sort of have the traditional rights to rule over a geographical area or a people. That system of oligarchic government is referred to as an aristocracy, ruled by the aristocrats, by the nobility. Another form of oligarchic government is plutocracy. Plutocracy simply means rule by the wealthy. It's a situation where those with the most means, the most resources, are the ones that are making laws or rules to control people in a geographical area or, as it were, a business entity. Then we have meritocracy, which is ruled by the meritorious. Meritorious simply means people who are skilled in different aspects of life. It may be somebody skilled in engineering, being in charge of all construction works within a society. Somebody skilled in philosophy, being in charge of making policies, you know, a situation where the most skilled, the most talented people within a society are the ones ruling, strictly based on the talents that they possess, is meritocracy, which is also a form of oligarchy. And finally, we have theocracy, which technically means rule by God. But we all know that God will not come down to rule. So what it simply means is that power is exercised by the religious elite. An example of a theocratic state is the country of Iran in the Middle East. Okay, so these different expressions of oligarchic government just go to further show us that power rests within a small number of people based on certain qualities. Aristocracy based on their noble birth, plutocracy based on their wealth, meritocracy based on their talent, and theocracy based on the assumption that they are representatives of God. Okay? So let's look at the final and most popular form of government, which is democracy. Democracy, much like the other ones, where you have anarchism ruled by none, autocracy ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by few. Democracy is ruled by the majority. And one of the most popular definitions that the leading light in democratic governance, the leading example in democratic governance as popularized is that it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So it just simply means that the majority are exercising the rights to rule or govern themselves. As we go further, we would look at the different, how democracy started and how it has changed till this modern day. Let's go on to the next slide. So, origin and practice of democracy. If I asked everyone in this class to quickly say what they understand by the terms democracy, I believe these are some of the answers that I will get. That it is a government of the people, like I just said. It represents the will of the majority. It is competition for political power. It is the
I think our facilitator, yes, has a network issue. So let's just hold on. Jessica, please, you have the host function. So when he's back, kindly make him co-host. Thank you. Our facilitator will be here soon, please. He's having some network challenges, but he's reconnecting now. Thank you. Fauzia, kindly make him a co-host. He's back on the call. Search for Tony Osidamen. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. I apologize for that break. It was due to some disruption in my internet connection. Can everyone hear me now? Can you confirm that you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Beautiful. Okay, so we were talking about what democracy means to different people, and I quickly went through. If I took a poll now and I asked most of the people in this class what democracy meant to them, these are some of the answers that I believe that I will get. It is a government of the people, the will of the majority. It's competition by different people within the community or the state for political power. It is the right to voice your opinions. It is freedom to be part of any organization. It is equality, rights, and representation. It is free market. Democracy is citizen action. And when we talk about democracy, one of the things that comes to mind usually is elections. Okay, so how did democracy begin? What is democracy and how did it start? Like I said before, democracy means rule by the majority. So the literal meaning is rule by the people. It's derived from the Greek word demokratia, which is coined from demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning rule. It was thought to have been the word came into effect in about the middle of the 5th century. This is according to available literature. However, there is ample evidence to show that in a broad sense, there were different forms of democratic governments long before the turn of the 5th centuries. So scholars believe that democracy was the natural system amongst those non-literate tribal societies. That's during those thousands of years where people were typically hunters that went around gathering things. So as of that time, it is believed that even amongst those non-literate tribal society, democracy as a system of government already existed in some form because the people organized themselves such that they chose representatives amongst them. And this was not somebody imposing themselves on the people, but the people themselves chose representatives to make rules on their behalf in such a way that the leaders were a reflection of the will of the people. But over time, from those periods, from the period of hunting and gathering, we began to see inequalities in the size of communities and also in their wealth status and in their military power. So what happened was that those communities that were able to amass greater wealth grew in stature and in power. So greater wealth meant that they could invest in more military, as of the time, protective or instruments for wars and fights. They could invest more in those. And since they had the money and they could invest in military wear, what that meant is that those bigger, more wealthier, stronger communities would now go into other places that are supposedly smaller and overrun them because of the might that they possessed. So those systems of government that existed in the non-literate tribal societies where people organized for themselves how they wanted their communities to be run were replaced by more hierarchical and authoritarian forms of social organization imposed by those that had more power. So that's what gave rise to all the years of autocratic governments like you see in the absolute monarchies, where only people of a particular family were ruling, or people who were wealthy were ruling the people. So autocratic governments and oligarchic governments now replaced the more popular democratic government that existed in those days. And it remained like that for thousands of years. And then around 500 BCE, conditions that permitted the emergence of democratic governments appeared again. And so small groups of people began to create what they had in those non-literate tribal societies, but in a more sophisticated form, one might say. And that development was mostly seen in places like Rome, the Mediterranean, and Greece. They are thought to be the places where democracy as we know it today once again started to take root and became a more popular form of government, replacing the more authoritarian, autocratic, and oligarchic governments. So that's how, according to history, democracy progressed. Now, there are different variants of democracy. Broadly speaking, there are two main variants. We have the direct, or what is also called the participatory democracy, and we have the representative or indirect democracy. So the direct or participatory democracy is a form of government in which the citizens themselves are the ones who make legislative decisions, as against appointing people to do that on their behalf. This form of democracy is considered the purest form because the people themselves at that molecular level are involved in making the decisions concerning them. And the modern day examples of this type of democracy, which is referred to as the purest form of democracy, is the referendums and petitions. Some of you will remember, I'm sure the closest example to this would be the Brexit. I'm sure many of us remember Brexit. Brexit was a poll amongst the people of the United Kingdom whether or not to stay as a part of the European Union. And as we know, majority voted that the Britain should exit the European Union and become on its own outside of the other Schengen states that make up the EU. So Brexit is one of the popular forms of referendum or direct democracy, and it is one in which the people themselves are the ones who decide. Another example, older example, is the Scottish referendum, which took place around September 18, 2014, when the people of Scotland asked themselves one question: whether they should remain a part of the United Kingdom or to be an independent country. And 55.3% of people said no, we would remain a part of the United Kingdom, while the remaining 44.7% said we want out. Of course, the majority carried the day. That is why up till this day, Scotland remains a part of the United Kingdom. It is described as pure, as direct or participatory, because the people themselves were involved in these referendums and petitions. They voted to either stay or exit certain units, as it were. Now, the opposite of these is the representative or indirect democracy. And this is simply one in which legislation is enacted by people chosen by the community themselves, people chosen to be their representative. The majority of people delegate power to a minority because of certain things. It could be because they think that those people are the most brilliant, in the example of meritocracy, or for other reasons, maybe because they are wealthy, maybe because they are philanthropists, or for whatever reason. The majority of the people just decide that we are going to have a few people represent us. And this is what we find in most of the places today, where the majority mandates the minority to act on their behalf. So broadly speaking, these are the two main variants of democracy. Of course, there are still, I said broadly speaking because there are other terms associated with democracy that we'll not go into today. There are topics like liberal democracy, social democracy, popular democracy. But broadly speaking, and as a concept, these are the two main variants of democratic government. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Let's compare the advantages of democracy over others. Now, before we go ahead, let me just make a note that democracy would not have survived as the most popular system of government among the countries recognized by the UN. I think there are about 193 member states of the UN. Majority of them, I think up to 175 or so, I'm not sure of the figures, I'll cross-check, or anyone can quickly cross-check and state in the chat box. Majority of these number of recognized countries practice democracy. And it wouldn't be so if the people believe that another system of government was better than democratic government. Now, do I, as a person, believe that democracy is the best system of government? That is not what is in question today. I'm only making this more general remark because democracy wouldn't have survived as much as it has, and it won't be the system, the most practiced system of government in most of the 195 member states, member countries of the UN, if people thought that other forms of government were actually better. So in theory, states with democratic governments are thought to prevent rule by autocrats. Please note the operational word here is in theory. In practice, I'm sure some of you will argue that even in supposedly democratic countries, you still have some form of autocratic rule. Yes or no? I'm sure a lot of us will be divided on this, but I'm sure quite a number would agree that even in what is called a democratic system of government, we still find a situation where one man or a few persons in the polity are actually the ones determining everything because they have pocketed the judiciary, they have pocketed the legislature, and they are also the executive. So in that kind of situation, even though you mouth being a democratic government, in practice, it is actually an autocratic government. And also, remember when we're talking about the different forms of government, and we started, I did mention that one of them for academic purposes is anarchism. And anarchism simply means rule by none. You will find that even in a democratic setting, it is possible to have a situation where it seems like there's no one in charge. In my opinion, we experienced something like that during the Buhari government, where for a long time, his health situation was shrouded in secrecy, and he was moved abroad, and there was no information about his condition, and power wasn't officially transmitted to the vice for a long time. That lacuna, that space that existed, can be described as anarchy, because in real terms, while Buhari was away on medical trip, holiday or whatever, power wasn't officially transmitted to a vice for a long time. So that period when this wasn't done can be described as anarchy, because in practice there was really no leader at the time. I think a similar thing happened during the Yar'Adua era as well. If you remember, for a long time, people did not know whether President Umaru Yar'Adua was alive or dead. It was when people like the late Dora Akinyuli, I think she was either Minister of Information or NAFDAC DG, I don't know what she was at the time, started to make a lot of noise about this, that they came out and said, oh, the president was actually dead. But for some period, the country was in the dark as to what was happening. And what usually happens is that technically in that period, no one is in charge. It is like a rudderless ship. And that kind of period, that vacuum, when there's no official head, can be described as anarchy. So the point of explaining this is to show that democracy sometimes does not exist in that pure form. You still have it corrupted by other forms of government. So you can be in a democracy, at the same time, your rulers have autocratic tendencies, or they are not even there for a period of time, as the examples that I gave, leading to anarchy. But again, the point that we're looking at right now is why democracy seems to be the most popular. So it is thought in theory to prevent the rule by autocrats. But if you look at it, largely speaking, most of the democratic states have checks and balances in place. I'm not saying it is equal from country to country, but in the countries that we should be looking at as models of democracy, we would see that those checks and balances are actually in place. So in a way, it prevents the rule of autocrats. Does it do that completely? Absolutely not. Again, democracy is thought to guarantee fundamental individual rights. So people believe that democracy has survived this long because it guarantees the rights of majority of the people. It allows for high level of political equality, theoretically, and it is thought to better foster human development in different areas, in healthcare, in human rights, in access to education. It is thought that countries with a democratic form of government ensure greater prosperity for majority of the people. So yes, comparing it to other forms of government, in theory, democracy seems to have survived because it offers the most advantages. But in practice, you and I know that democracy is not without its flaws and loopholes. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Challenges of democratic government. In a democracy, like all other dominant forms of government, as I just explained, actual governance can be influenced by sectors with political power. This is what I was talking about. The rich, determining how things happen. And this is not just in Nigeria, even in advanced countries like the United States, some people that constitute a power block, some small group of people that constitute a major power block, still decide the affairs of state, still decide who emerges president, who emerges governor, So democracy, even though it's the most popular form of government, even though it has all of this benefit, is not without its by other forms of government. I just mean that the purity, because it's now diluted by all these other forms of government existing together inside what is believed to be a democratic setting. Okay, next slide. Now let us look at the concept of citizenship, which is really what our presentation is about. Now, citizenship is tied to the idea of democracy. It's like Siamese twins. Citizenship is one side, democracy is the other side. This is according to a Latin American activist. Now, the concept of citizenship has evolved over the years. As far back as the 18th century, when the concept of citizenship became like a real thing, debates around citizenship were such that the people were seen as users and consumers. Their position in society was not defined by them, but it was defined by the government, because the government was thought to know what is best for the people. In that time, a model citizen was one who displayed trust and obedience, total trust and obedience to whatever the established rulership said. Because for some reasons, citizens, they didn't believe that citizens had the capacity to make choices for themselves. So when the term citizenship started becoming popular, it was such that the people couldn't really decide for themselves. So the government decided for them. They were seen just as users and consumers. I, as the government, tell you what you need to do, how you fit into this community, and you, as a good citizen, you just follow without questions. However, over time, that concept changed as they now started to look at citizens as not just people that were told what to do, but as people with the ability to decide for themselves how they wanted things to be done. Advocates say it's not that people are politically incompetent or distracted by consumerism. Rather, it is the continued concentration of power in the hands of a few that is the problem. The belief is that more involvement by people in decisions that affect them would improve both government and the people's life. So new approaches to social citizenship emerge, moving beyond conferring rights on citizens and responsibilities. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And then in doing so, citizens now became to play a greater role in deciding their own fate. More popular concepts now recognize the agency of citizens as makers and shapers rather than users and choosers. Okay, so this is how citizenship as a concept has evolved over time. Okay, now, democratic governments and citizenship have one thing that is at the center, and that is universality. I did explain to you earlier that the reason why democracy is practiced by most of these 193 member countries of the United Nations is because it is thought to guarantee prosperity and rights for majority of the people. So as a concept, democracy and citizenship have at the center universality and equality as a concept. However, there are issues in these concepts in practical terms. And we're going to explore some of these issues. One of them is the individual versus collective identity. Here, inside these classrooms, we have people who are Yoruba Muslims, Yoruba Christians, Igbo Muslims, Igbo Christians. We have men, we have women, we have people of different ethnic groups inside this class. Now, some group of people believe that certain things should be granted them within a democratic state. The challenge is for those group of people, whether it is race, whether it is gender, whether it is tribe, whether it is religion, in granting you what you believe is your entitlement or right, how does that affect the rights of another group of people? So in protecting the rights of women, the rights, self-expression, and all of that, does that in any way, and this is for academic purposes, does that in any way affect protection of the rights of men? In protecting the rights of Muslims, does that affect in some way the rights of Christians? In protecting our heritage and culture as Edo people, proud Yoruba people, are we infringing on the rights of Igbo people, Efik people, Kanuri, Hausa, Nupe people to their own form of self-expression? How can we ensure within a democratic setting, a democratic space, that the rights of the individual versus the collective is protected? I'll give you one example so that you can understand this very, very well. If you remember in the United States, there was this popular case of a baker who refused to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple. Now, this baker refused because she was a Christian. And according to her and the dictates of her belief, she wasn't supposed to bake a cake for people who practiced a lifestyle that she believed was against or contrary to what our faith or our religion thought. Now, if we remember, that issue caused a lot of uproar at the time. As a matter of fact, I think the woman was sanctioned, and then it eventually went to court. And I think the way it ended was that it was proven that the woman had a right to choose whom to give her service to based on whatever criteria that she chose, and that her religion and her faith needed to be taken into consideration in determining whether our actions were discriminatory or not. Now, the LGBTQI community would argue that in this woman pursuing our own rights, she has trampled on their own, right? And in a way, some people would argue that they have a case, okay? So even though democracy is about universality, these types of issues exist. We need to find a way to marry individual identity versus collective identity. Democracy is supposed to find a way to ensure that all the different people, all the different classes that make up a society feel that they have the right to express themselves, and that they are being protected, and that they are free to live their best lives under the system of government. So you'd agree with me that that is actually a very delicate area. And as the practice of democracy evolves, one of the challenges would be how to ensure within these democratic settings that in protecting the right of an individual, we are not infringing on the right of others, and finding a way to ensure that whatever it is that we do as a people, we protect the weakest, the most vulnerable amongst us. Okay, so let's look at another issue in modern day citizenship. This is private life versus public life. Now, some people still using the same examples: Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Christian, Muslim, male, female. Different people that make up a society. Now, you can find, if you take a critical look at most of our establishments, that some of us do things based on certain biases, right? Okay, no, this is actually linked to the initial problem. I'll just take a step back. The initial challenge, individual versus collective identity. Now, let me also explain this point under individual versus collective identity. Because like I said, in this class, we're made up of different people. I have seen situations where a Yoruba man, a Yoruba woman, this is a real life example, and an Igbo man have worked together as ushers in a church, right? No problems. They smile, they respect each other, they hug each other, they love each other. Then when the children now decide that they want to get married, these two people who have lived together peacefully and are brothers and sisters in church, love each other, suddenly say, over my dead body, my Yoruba son cannot marry an Igbo woman. My Igbo son cannot marry an Hausa woman. How do we ensure that in the things that we do, we're not extending different standards to different people? How do we ensure that there is always fairness and people's rights are always considered? Another example, people are in an establishment you want to hire. How many times do we find people hiring a person not because they are the most qualified for the position, but because the person is a woman, or the person is a man, or the person is from my tribe? We see this many times. So these are some of the issues in modern day citizenship. Ideally, democracy should guarantee that the rights of everyone is protected, but does it? And we must continually find ways to ensure that the practice of democracy evolves such that there are no double standards. Everyone, irrespective of their race, their gender, their religion, their class, their age, ethnicity, sexual preference, are protected and feel free to express themselves, as it were. Okay, now, I'll now go back to the other concept, which is private versus public life. One of the examples I'll give is a senator comes to the House, to the Senate, and is proposing bills that are supposed to protect women, empower women in public within the chambers, the Senate chambers. But this same senator goes to an adult toy shop. If you are wondering, or if you're already thinking it is Senator Abo I am talking about. Just an example of what happens in the broader society. This senator goes and harasses women inside an adult toy shop. How do you reconcile that this same person in the House is claiming to be a champion for women, but in his private life, he's assaulting women in a shop? How do you reconcile that? A model citizen should have the same standards in private as well as in public. A more recent example, we should remember the taxi driver and that the Uber driver or Bolt driver and the lawmaker from one of the eastern states. You remember? Now that lawmaker, some people say, oh, he's a very nice, always been doing charity. And I think some of the statements that he released after that as damage control, laid claim to those things that, oh, I have done this, I have helped my community, I have helped people, I believe in people. But here was this senator or honorable lawmaker with another citizen threatening to make that citizen disappear because he's in a position of power. And he brazenly said it, you will disappear and nothing will happen. How do you marry what we do in private and in our public life? A model citizen should have the same standards in private as well as in public. You see a man, angelic, a preacher in church, a lay reader, an example, an elder. But at home, this man is beating his wife. This man is not present for his children. How do you marry that? Public life versus private life. Because citizenship should be similar standards. And remember what I said, what is central to the concept of democracy and citizenship is universality. Universality meaning that standards are upheld everywhere, individual and collective, private and public. Those standards should guarantee that the rights of the majority of people are protected. Not one group over the other, not something different in public and then something different in private. I hope we're following. Okay, so let's look at societal context when it comes to modern day citizenship. So from place to place, the concept of what a model citizen is or what citizenship should be slightly differs. Centrally, it is about universality, equality, freedom, but there are certain variations according to the societal context. So in South Africa, for instance, a good citizen is thought to be somebody who actively fights racism. And we know why this is so, because South Africa suffered apartheid for very many years. So when they think citizenship or a good citizen, what usually comes to their head are, freedom fighters or people who are vocal about racism. Those are, for South Africans, for the longest time, those are who model citizens should be. In a country like Russia, for instance, being a good citizen might be associated with economic liberalism and individual self-reliance is valued over collective action. In a country like Russia, they value individual self-reliance over collective action. And in places like war-torn regions, talk about Sudan, Syria, a good citizen usually is one who seeks peaceful resolutions and reconciliation. So these are some of the issues in modern day citizenship. Even though, like I have tried to explain through this conversation that we're having, that there is a common thread of universality and equality between democracy and citizenship, there still exists challenges and variations in how these exist in practice. Okay, so we're almost at the end. What makes a good citizen? So they just brought back public power. Someone is going to change, so there might be darkness for a little while, okay, because they're going to change to public power from the generator. Okay, that has happened just as I was saying it. So what makes a good citizen? being informed and aware of social, economic, and political issues. By all means, please enjoy your K-drama, enjoy your Telemundo, enjoy Big Brother, watch all the things on Netflix. But as a model citizen, it's also important that you are informed about social, economic, and political issues happening around you. A good citizen is one who fosters tolerance and respect for human rights in all relationships and institutions mediating conflicts, and he is concerned about taking steps to combat disadvantage and injustice. I'll cite some examples here, okay? Sometimes, and this happens with us young people on social media. Let me use the example of a comedian. A comedian does a skit, and this skit is painting certain people in a certain light. Maybe because of his ignorance, he's making fun of people with Down syndrome, for instance, or people who are differently able, as we say these days, and he's making jest and doing, all of those things. In his mind, he's trying to entertain, but what he's doing really is making fun of a subsection of society. And remember what we said about democracy and citizenship, that it should guarantee the rights of the majority, especially the most vulnerable in society, are protected. So when this comedian shares this, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to laugh and share it with all your friends? Or are you supposed to say, no, this is not cool? Maybe before now, your attitude is to share whatever comes to your page without really thinking it through. But I am challenging you right now that whatever it is that comes on your platform, you have the moral responsibility, the civic responsibility also, to ensure that if those things don't edify others, if those things bring down a section of the society, you do not join in propagating it. An example, there was a trending video of some guy from Equatorial Guinea called Balthazar. I saw many people on different pages begging to watch licensed or approved videos of people having sex. And people were begging, please share with me, share with me, share with me, share with me, share with me. How is that action protecting the rights of people? I'm by no means saying what Balthazar or any of the people did is good or bad. This is not about good or bad. This is about, have they given the rights for their images and videos to be shared? If they have not, why are we begging for them and sharing them? This is a violation of their rights. Forget the morality of their actions. Two wrongs cannot make a right. So instead of sharing those videos, making jest, those supposedly jocular video, making jest of differently able people amongst us, instead of begging and sharing videos of people that has been circulated without their approval, having sex or doing whatever, why not educate people not to do that? Okay, so a model citizen should, whatever your sphere of influence, anything that you see that is against a section of society, what a model citizen should do is find a way, an opportunity to educate those people involved to do better. I also did not know some of these things. At some point, I would have been quick to share these videos, but think about it. Will you be so quick to share if it was your brother or your sister that were in those videos? Would you be so quick to share with other people? Just think about it. Sometimes we think these things are fun, just, we're just catching tricks. But ask yourself, would you be so quick to share? If you cannot share your brother or your sister's video like that, why are you sharing that of somebody else? So I'm challenging us to all do better, because this is what makes a model citizen. We should be concerned, at this point I was talking about taking steps to combat disadvantage and injustice. We should promote collective action and a collective spirit. We should participate in community and national affairs. Now, a lot of us, especially young people, Gen Zs, millennials, we're very active on social media. Criticism is very, very good, because without criticism, our leaders and our representatives would just be free to just act as they please. Our criticisms, even if it is to my 10 followers, is not a waste. Those things become a critical mass that tomorrow pressure our leaders to do better, right? But we can do better than just making comments on social media. We can do better than that. We can also start to take part in political activities where we live. And I'm not saying all of us should be politicians, for instance. If I asked, how many of us here know the names of our LCDA chairman? How many of us know where the office is? I bet not many of us. And the thing is, we don't all have to be politicians to know these things. We don't all have to be politicians to have the email addresses, to send messages directly to them about issues affecting our community. We need to start, if we want to see any change in society, it is our responsibility as citizens to get involved in our own ways. Again, I'm maintaining, we don't all have to be politicians. We don't all have to aspire to public office. If you have the passion for it, for serving, by all means, do it. But you don't have to be in political office to be able to make change in your own little ways. Just by being active, your street meetings, all of these are small blocks where we can make some influence, okay? A good citizen should promote participatory democracy in politics, at home, wherever we are, within our sphere of influence, whatever we can do to make things better. Are we the type that will complain about how dirty Lagos is, and then we're in a bus tomorrow, and or in our car, and we're throwing litters outside of our vehicles, outside of the buses? How are you being a model citizen? Because you are contributing to the problem by the same action that you're doing, and then you're criticizing the government for not dealing with the drainage when apart from their failure to plan proper urban planning, you are also clogging those drainages with the litters that you're throwing everywhere. So in order to be a model citizen, there is responsibility implied, and each of us need to do our part, okay? The final thing I would like to say on this point, and this is a very hard point to say. It is hard because in a country like Nigeria, you almost do not have any real incentive to have hope. Almost, because it seems like everywhere the government is frustrating your effort. Everything you're doing, is it power? How many times has the national grid collapsed this year? I think 12 times as at last count. Is it the roads? Is it the transportation system? This country always gives us something that makes it hard to be optimistic. But I want to encourage you that even if it's a small, thin thread of optimism that you hold on to, please keep holding on to it. Because if we don't believe that there can ever be change in a system, we will not be motivated to take any action. So that hope, I beg you, as tough as the situation is, I beg you, please keep the hope alive and let that hope be your driving force to taking actions that can lead to positive development. It doesn't have to be on a broad scale. If the positive change happens in your home, if you're being an example to your siblings, to your children, to the people who work with you, the little changes that those people make because of the examples that you set for them are what will catalyze bigger changes in society. The truth is, if we're going to change society, it's not just going to happen from top down. It has to happen from those smaller units, especially from the family units. And each of us has a responsibility in this sense. We need, this point, let me emphasize it. We need to use all our platforms. I did say before that even if the messages you're tweeting about what is happening, and please be sure to fact check the things that you're tweeting, because a model citizen is not one who causes anarchy by spreading false information. A model citizen is one who will take responsibility for the things that they share. Do the work of ensuring that what they are putting out there is the right information. We should not be trigger happy to just share. Let us do our fact checks before we do. So talking about the point about doing something within our sphere of influence, I'll use an example that I use during this class every time. There is a known influencer called Tunde Ednut. And I use this example every time because to whom much is given, much is expected. That's not to say those of us who have lesser followerships don't have like a responsibility as well. But I just want to use him as an example so that we can also look inwards and see what steps we can take within our own sphere of influence to bring about change and to correct some of the ills in the society. Now, Tunde has this thing he calls smash or pass. Smash or pass simply is he will post a raunchy picture of a male or a female and say smash or pass. Smash means, would you like to have sex with this woman or this man? And pass me, no, I don't want. Two things that post is doing: objectifying people, men and women. And some of us run there, hey, smash, pass, smash, pass. And then we wonder why certain sections of society treat women as commodities or act in a certain way. Or even when we say pass, somehow we're also looking at the features of these people and in a way body shaming them. Remember what we said about citizenship and the common thread between democracy and citizenship. What is at the center? Universality, equality, protecting the freedoms and the rights of people, ensuring that the most vulnerable are protected and everybody gets to be respected and live their best lives. All of these small actions that we take within our areas, even when we're having beer with our friends or when we're at the salon, making our hair or getting our manicure, pedicure done. The small chit chats that we have, there are opportunities for us to make a change. Instead of propagating ideologies or actions that bring down a section of society, that ridicule certain people, that make fun of certain people, that body shame certain people, that insult certain people, certain tribes, why don't we use those opportunities for something that is edifying, something that promotes people, that uplifts people? This is what a model citizen should do. Okay, how do we build active citizen advocacy? We're ending our presentation now. This is the point I was talking about. Within our sphere of influence, let's start developing people's knowledge about critical consciousness to resist dominant values, especially those ones that are bad and injurious to us as a people. Let's begin to promote civic education and advocacy training. This is why I like what the Electoral College is doing with these classes, because it's important, if we are to see any change in society, it's important that citizens become aware of their roles and responsibilities in bringing about this change. And one of the ways, just like the Electoral College is doing with this through this fora, is through civic education and advocacy training. When we were young, we had citizenship education. Those were subjects that introduced us to our duties and responsibilities as citizenship. It shouldn't end in the schools. Even in our places of work, there should be some form of citizen education and advocacy for people to be more aware. In churches as well, churches have a role to play in that education as well. So kudos to the Electoral College for what they're doing, but we need to replicate this on different levels in different units, and that's the way we can grow and see the kind of change that we want. We should pursue broad-based citizen action. So an organization that is, for instance, interested in climate change on its own can do quite a bit. But if you find other organizations that share the same vision and have the same goals, and you put your voices and resources together, imagine how much more you can do. Remember the popular analogy: if you have a broomstick, it's easy to break, but if you have a bunch of broomsticks as a broom, it's harder to break. If we identify people with similar ideologies, who are passionate about social issues that we're passionate about, and we pursue broad-based citizen action through the media, through whatever outlets, we would see that slowly but surely the changes that we seek will start to surface. Okay? In conclusion, advocacy that is geared to building citizenship and reshaping political culture draws heavily on the theory and practice of participation and popular education. This is just a summary of what I said. A new practice of citizen leadership requires an integrated strategy involving participatory education processes to build people's ability to analyze their reality and internalize their rights as citizens. It also takes new alliances and broad-based democratic organizations that tap the power of working together, as well as respecting and using people's differences. That is our class, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. I shall now hand over to Faiza for any questions or comments. Faiza, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for this yet another enlightening and educating session. Thank you for taking us through. But I need to say this, sir. You murdered my name.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Please correct me, and I'll learn to pronounce it correctly.
Okay, Fauzia.
Fauzia. Fauzia.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
Fauzia. My apologies.
All right.
I don't have any problem learning.
Okay.
So thanks for correcting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, to the rest of the participants, I would like to say these few words to us as parting word from what our facilitator has said. So the emphasis that he made was for us to never stop learning. We should keep learning, unlearning, relearning, and passing the message across to different across different levels that we find ourselves. So yeah, I would ask us to raise our hands if you have any question for our facilitator, or we can type our questions in the chat box. So I'll take us alternatively. Thank you. Any questions for our facilitator?
I see the comments in the chat box. Thank you for all the encouraging comments. I appreciate them. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm seeing a hand up. I would ask you to unmute now, Rajabu. Okay, Didima, please can you help unmute? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me, madam?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
My question regards the way in which we have to educate these citizens around, because you know that the only capital we have when we are talking about political matters, especially in the democratic way, we have to make sure that we have common interest, or we are working on the common thing or common understanding matters. So how are we going to convince the understanding of everybody around us?
Okay. Can you mute now? Okay, I think I had this question is from Mohammed, isn't it? Rajabu. I hope I got that well. Okay. Fauzia, did I get that well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is from Rajabu. Rajabu, thank you for that question. All I can say is we can only do our best, right? We can't force anybody to take anything that we say. And apart from what we say, one of the best ways to pass a message across is to model it, to show through our actions. Sometimes somebody is sending me stuff and I'm saying, this thing you are sending, bros, I don't find it funny. Tomorrow he sends it again. I ignore. What will happen after a while? That person will stop sending you that stuff. So you can tell them, educate them about certain issues or certain ways of doing things that are wrong, and what the right way of doing those things should be. They may not take it immediately, but you would have done your part, right? It's not on you, but on them, whether they take it or not. What you can do is what you have done, and hope that through consistently modeling it, if you get the opportunity to be around the same space, vicinity as those people, someday they would eventually get the message that you're trying to pass across. Because you can't force somebody to do something. They say you can take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink water. We can only do what is within our control, and what is within our control is to share based on our new knowledge of what our roles as citizens, as model citizens should be, what we think should be the ideal actions, and hope that they buy it, if not now, sometime in the future. That's all you can do, Rajabu. I hope that helps. Okay, thank you, Rajabu. I saw your feedback. Thank you. Fauzia, do we have, I think we have 3 hands raised. Who are you allowing to speak next?
Oladapo Segun. Didima, can you please help me unmute Oladapo Segun?
All right, thank you very much. Please confirm if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, Oladapo, I can hear you.
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, tutor, for tonight. I really appreciate your class. Very clear, very brilliant. But I just need a little clarification, or probably you just explain more on some things. You mentioned some of the things we do that we feel we are catching cruise or catching fun online. Example is sharing content like note pictures of others and all that. What if those things happen to, they don't feel bad? Like we have a popular musician that got leaked recently, and she came back singing about it like nothing happened, those kind of things. We have other examples of other bad things that are to us we feel is bad, because I believe we still have our senses intact. But these people that this thing occurred to doesn't see it as bad. They even come back and they are very proud of it. The way they come back after the occurrences is they are proud. So how will you advise us to treat such situation? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Oladapo. I'm sure the musician you were talking about is Tiwa Savage, Sex Tape Olebaye Mije. There are probably others like that, but if you looking at Tiwa Savage's example, if you look at how it started, she wasn't the one who pushed out this sex tape. It was someone who tried to blackmail her, and she refused to give in to the blackmail. So before the person leaked the picture or the video, she came out and said, this is happening. And I commend her for doing that, because sometimes we give blackmailers the power and they put us in a box. Either they extort us or they get us to do things that we would ordinarily not do if they didn't have some sort of power or leverage over us. So look at how it came out. It wasn't something she willingly pushed out. It was something that got out accidentally. And it's not like she's proud of it being out there. But yes, the person did go out and put it out there. Is her life supposed to end because there's a sex tape out there? I think much more than being proud, in quotes, of her sex tape being out. And I'm only using the example of Tiwa Savage. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone out there with a sex tape. But using this example, much more than being proud, what I think she has done is to say, no, I will not let my life end because a blackmailer decides to do something stupid and illegal by putting my sex tape out there. In any case, even if the people are happy with their tapes being out, they have not given you the license to share them. So sharing them is actually an illegality. Forget the moral part of it now. Sharing those things without authorization is actually illegal. Is the same way somebody, you know, when we talk about piracy, somebody has done work, intellectual work, and then you start to put them on platforms and all of that, especially when you're getting revenue out of it. That is actually something illegal. It's not just the moral aspect of it now. So I encourage us all to think about these things. It doesn't matter whether the person is, happy or rejoicing or singing about it. Legally, morally, is it right to be sharing people's private lives in that fashion? If it was your sister, if it was your brother, never mind, that they are happy about it, would you still share? Even if your brother is happy about it, would you share their video? If you check yourself critically, I'm sure most of us wouldn't. So my advice would be, irrespective of those people's motivations or responses, let us do the right thing. And the right thing, morally, legally, would be not to share content that we're not authorized to share. Okay. I hope that helps, Oladapo.
All right, thank you, sir. Abdulhakeem, we can go next.
All right. Good evening.
Yes, Abdulhakeem. Yes, I can hear you, Abdulhakeem. Please go ahead.
Right. Thank you so much. You did a really great job, and that was a very, an insightful exposition from you. So my question is, before I ask my question, I would love to just paint a scenario. When you talked about citizens being responsible and then contributing their own quota to a society that is nurturing them, or a society that is giving to them, so that we can in turn contribute our own to the development of our immediate community and the nation at large, together with what the government is doing. Now, I belong to a voluntary youth organization, and we have series of programs that we run quarterly, annually, and on seasons like that. One of the programs is Stop the Crime campaign. And by Stop the Crime campaign, we mean a program that will run nationwide to campaign against various forms of crimes among the students of secondary school and post-secondary schools. Now, in our own efforts to making sure that we develop kids, especially secondary school students, that's because we feel we can catch them young and leave those who have gone too far in crime or committing crime to committing that crime, because virtually we've tried to get on them, take them back, and we see that it's proving difficult. Now we shift our focus to nurturing the younger ones by giving them the right orientation so that it will be easier for us that when they transition into adults or adulthood, they will continue to make use of the teachings that they have gotten. Now, to my question, how do you manage a situation where programs like this, when, for example, you take it to secondary schools that are owned by government and your organization or those representatives from your organization that you send to such a school are prevented from staging or organizing such a program? I've faced with some incidents where we were told to go to Ministry of Education to go and obtain letter or a kind of note that authorizes us to organize such a program. And I must mention that this is an organization that is well registered under, or let me say, an affiliate of National Youth Council of Nigeria. And we do not just run all this program for the sake of name or just running it alone. So how do you manage such a situation where even after you have gotten an authorization from the Ministry of Education or where appropriate that you are supposed to get it from, some schools, probably because of religious sentiment or let me say ethnic sentiment, still prove stubborn by disallowing you to organize such a program? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdullah Kim. Let me commend you first for the work you're doing with your, I believe, an NGO, or whatever body it is you're doing the work with. Earlier, I said, and you've just reiterated that sometimes, or a lot of times, things in this country can frustrate you. And I am being very, very practical. And this is just an example of it. But I did say, as frustrating as it is, it's important to hold on to hope, even if it's a tiny shred of hope. And let that be your motivating factor, for taking action. Yes, you will go to places where something that is glaringly good and beneficial for the students, the authorities that should approve are either dilly-dallying or they are outright, disapproving it. All I can say is, if you have the opportunity to go to a higher up than that office, do that. And if you can't do that, make repeated moves. I know it can be frustrating because you want to do something good. It's not like you want to do something bad and, this is something that should benefit people. It's benefiting the students more than it's even benefiting you in most of the cases. So it's incredulous that they would not approve something like that. If you try to go through higher ups and you still are meeting roadblocks, I'm sorry, but all you can only do what is within your control. Do whatever it is you can. Make repeated appeals to the offices, and hopefully someday some reasonable person in that office will buy into the good thing that you're trying to do and give you the backing that you need. It's really not easy to be Nigerian. It's really not easy to get things done in this country, but we can't lose hope. We have to keep doing whatever it is within our power. We have to keep encouraging ourselves. So I would just like to encourage you to keep going, Abdullah Kim. I hope that helps. Okay, Fauzia, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for today. Didima. I believe Miss Charlie is on the call. There are any announcements for the...
Thank you so much, Mr. Tony. It's been an insightful and enlightening class as always. Thank you for always doing this. We really appreciate you on behalf of the college. So thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.
Tomorrow. I'll just allow the students on mute to tell you thank you, and then we'll end the class.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, there are
Thank you so much, sir, for
111 people in this class. One request.
Thank you, sir.
I want to have 111.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you, sir.
Thank
you, sir. God bless you. Really.
You were saying something, sir, about your social media handle? Mr. Tony, are you here?
Sorry, I was speaking. I didn't know I was muted.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, everyone, for the thanks. I appreciate you. It's my pleasure to give this class. I was just saying that 111 people at last count in this class. I think some people left. Please follow me on LinkedIn. Tony Usidamen is my name. And we can continue this conversation, you know, there and on other platforms. So thank you to the Electoral College for having me. I wish everyone a very, very lovely weekend.
Thank you, sir. Could you kindly help us end the meeting? You have the host function.
Oh, okay. All right. Good night, everyone.